From the studios in San Diego, California, this is Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network, coming to you live here today on this Wednesday, January 4th, 2017, as we get set to go on the first birthday, the 1 year anniversary of the Mixed Up Sports Network. Very, very glad to have been on for a year. We had a year of fantastic memories. And as we continue to go forward, we're looking to make new ones, of course. As we start off today with the NFL, of course, with this wild card weekend looming, as we'll take a look, of course, as tomorrow and Friday on the rest of these games. But as we look today at the Giants and the Packers, um, a couple things, a couple of things stand out. One is the fact that the Giants have played two games prior in the last 10 years at Lambeau in the postseason. The game is expected to be played at 12 degrees, which is not fun for anyone. Um, Two playoff games in the last 10 years at Lambeau Field, the Giants have won both. That's one thing to look at. Another thing to look at is the Giants over these last 10 years have won two Super Bowls having to play wild card weekend. Both times, again, both times having to go through Green Bay, and the first time having to go through a San Francisco 49ers team that completely destroyed Eli Manning all game long, and the Giants still found a way to win in overtime off of that muff punt. This this is going to be one of those. This is going to be another one of those games. It's going to be one of those games to where it is going to be very, very close. The defenses are going to take control of this game. I have a feeling, especially the Giants defense, which has done such a fantastic job, especially over the last month, working to try to get this team into the playoff spot that they are currently in with that 11-5 record that they have. And this team, I mean, if you look at the Giants, this team has sent a message, especially last week. That message being when you come off of a week 16 where two major quarterbacks get hurt, two big time two big time players get hurt, a time of the year where you want to start saving your players, you want to start saving your personnel, your big important personnel up for the playoffs. They went out there and they played just as hard in week 17 as they did in week 1 against the Washington Redskins, knocking them out of a playoff spot and getting even with a team that beat them earlier in the year. That right there, if you are the Packers, that right there also sends a message saying, "Hey, listen, this team is gonna be this team's gonna be tough." And if you look at the Packers now compared to where they were in week 9 or week 10, you also know as a Giant fan, as a Giant player, a Giant fan, this Packers team is not a team to be messed with. Aaron Rodgers, we've said it all year, and I said it last year, that Mike McCarthy, when people were talking about Mike McCarthy getting fired, I said, listen, relax. Mike McCarthy isn't going anywhere. McCarthy will be just fine. When you have one of the top two quarterbacks in the league on your team in Aaron Rodgers, you as a head coach are safe. We saw that for years with Tony Dungy in Indianapolis when he had Peyton Manning. We're still seeing that with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. When you have one of the top two quarterbacks in the NFL on your team, you are fine. You are absolutely fine. There is nothing that can be said or done to help you lose your job unless you're doing a pretty good job of trying to help yourself get out of wherever you are. Your job is safe. And when Aaron Rodgers comes out after the win on week 11 or week 10, whichever one it was, and says, "Listen, we are running the table this year," that should have put the rest of the NFL on notice, saying that, you know what, Aaron Rodgers done messing around. Yes, he's got that calf injury back, but he is not messing around. This is an Aaron Rodgers who is fully focused on the task at hand. This is an Aaron Rodgers who is fully focused on winning a Super Bowl this year. Not to say that he's not every year. And they had a couple of games where it almost looked like, what were you doing? That Chicago game definitely rings to mind. That game against Chicago, they pull out to, what was it, like a 21 or so point lead in that game against Chicago, and then they blew it to where they had to win on a last second field goal. That is not the Aaron Rodgers led team that you would expect to see. Both teams have had great success on defense this year. Both teams' secondary is incredible. I believe Janoris Jenkins will play. Jason Pierre-Paul said he is expecting to play on Sunday. Again, this is the 4 o'clock game on Sunday, I believe. Yes, it's the 4 o'clock game on Sunday. Almost 5. So the Giants are expected to have two key pieces. And the Giants have not had much of a pass rush this year, but I mean, every little bit helps. If Pierre-Paul's out, that will definitely help. That, and Pierre-Paul has the playoff experience. He has won a Super Bowl here. He has won a Super Bowl here. You have multiple playoff tested defensive players. A lot of people are coming in talking about the Giants' experience in the postseason being part of the downfall of this team. That is because in the key areas, cornerback, linebacker, you have a couple guys on the defensive and the offensive line, and most importantly, quarterback. They have all been here before. They have been in the postseason. Those offensive linemen and that quarterback will whip the wide receivers into shape. Victor Cruz has been here before. And I spoke, I believe it was yesterday, or Monday rather. I believe I said that, I mean, the one thing you may have to worry about with the Cowboys is the youth. The youth and inexperience. They have inexperience and youth in a lot of key areas, including quarterback, including running back, which has sparked a whole nother conversation 2 weeks in. Oh, well, if Dak doesn't do well in the first half, do they put Romo in based off of what he did in week 7? Let that all rest for a week. That's the funny thing about Cowboy fans is they do not let themselves rest. They have to be in a frenzy every single week. That is the funny part about them. Even on a week where they don't have to worry about anything, they're creating scenarios to freak themselves out. It's funny. It really is. But this, between the Giants and the Packers, both teams do have a plethora of experience. Aaron Rodgers has made a living in the playoffs. The Giants have a lot of experience at Lambeau Field in the playoffs. They have beaten Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs at Lambeau Field in frigid temperatures. They have beaten Brett Favre in Lambeau Field in frigid temperatures in the playoffs. This Giants team can very much so have success in this area. in this field, in these conditions, they can have the success. And if they do have the success, you know they're going to have to go through Dallas at some point. Whether it is the AFC divisional, whether it's the NFC divisional series next weekend, or if it's the championship series the weekend after that, they are going to end up going through Dallas at some point if they want to make it to the Super Bowl. The only other team that has been able to beat Dallas was the Philadelphia Eagles team in a game where the Dallas Cowboys could care less about the result. They had first place locked up. They had the division locked up for a couple weeks now. The Cowboys didn't care about the result in week 17. That's why Mark Sanchez played half the game. They didn't care about the result. So if they lost, they lost. So what? Big deal. You don't count that as a loss. You count that as a given. No other team, and that includes Green Bay, in Green Bay, has not beaten Dallas this year except for the Giants. And that was youth and experience. That was youth, skill, and experience in those games. The Giants have youth and skill against the Packers. And they have experience from players playing in those playoff games in frigid temperatures in Lambeau Field. The Giants do have the ability to win this game. Do they? Will they? Uh, Give me a week. Give me a couple days. I'll tell you Friday. If Pierre-Paul comes back, it'll only help. It can't hurt. Because again, he has won one of those frigid temperature games in Lambeau. He has won one of them. He knows what it takes. That, and he will help Olivier Vernon get in, and vice versa. Casillas, the middle linebacker, he's been there for both. I believe Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie was there for one, the second one, I believe. If not, he came in very shortly after. But with a secondary like this, with Cromartie, Jenkins, Landon Collins, this is going to be a very, very difficult team for the Giants to pass on. The Giants have had a tendency to give up big plays this year. And the Packers have had a tendency to make big plays this year. I mean, look at the game against Minnesota. Look at the game in Minnesota. The big pass to Jordy Nelson. That is a huge play. So the Packers can make huge plays. The Giants have allowed huge plays this year, but when they haven't, and especially recently, their defense has been absolutely ferocious. I still think they're weak in the linebacking core. I think they could be a little bit better to the sides of Casillas. They definitely need another pass rusher. That is a no doubt. They need another pass rusher. That offensive line is shaky. Eli Manning has been shaky this year. The running game really didn't show up until last week. Paul Perkins is expected to start Sunday, which is fantastic. Because Rashad Jennings wasn't a long-term answer. Perkins could be. And then, what else can you say about the wide receiver core? And listen, don't put any stock into what you saw come out on Monday that everyone was talking about yesterday and is still talking about today. Don't put any stock in that Miami getaway. Don't put any stock into it at all. They want to blow off some steam, that's fine, let them. They're in the playoffs. They've earned it. Let them blow off a little steam if they want to blow off a little steam. Do not kill them for it. It will have absolutely zero effect on the game Sunday. And if the Giants do end up losing on Sunday, you know the first thing everyone is going to point to is why are your three receivers in Miami on a Monday before a playoff game? And that ain't fair. That is going to have absolutely nothing to do if the Giants lose this week. It'll have nothing to do with it. And if you look at some of the stats that you've seen this year, you have the NFC leader in receptions, Odell Beckham. He was the only NFC player with 100 receptions. Receptions, not yards. He was second in yards to Julio Jones by only about 40. Third in the league overall. Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie had the most interceptions in the NFC with 6. Ha Clinton Dix for Green Bay right behind him with 5. And that's in the league. Fourth and fifth in the league in interceptions. Third in the league in yards. Third in the league in catches. So the Giants do have playmakers. They do have big play ability guys. They are going to need to make every big play that they can possibly make. If that defense lets up the way it had at the beginning of the year, with the way it was shaky earlier in the season, if they have a bad start to this game, it is going to be very, very tough. Just like the Eagles game, it is going to be very, very tough for this offense to come back and make up the difference. Because if this, you saw it in the Eagles game, that defense had a problem at the beginning, and then they were able to tighten up, and the offense was not able to recover. Was not able to recover the loss that the defense had. I have a feeling that if that is the case, and I believe a lot of people feel the same way, if that is the case again here, the same thing could happen. If the Giants defense leaks early, will the offense be able to recover the loss? And I genuinely don't think so. We'll take a look at the other three games when we return. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the 1 year anniversary of the Mixed Up Sports Network. Back right after this. All right, we're back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network as we get back into this really quick. The Jets let go of four of their coaches, including the quarterback coach, and I believe it was the running back coach as well. Also, they'll be looking for a new offensive coordinator as Chan Gailey, quote unquote, retires. Um, this is this is beyond. You know exactly what this is. This is the Jets firing Chan Gailey, but because of Gailey's history, because of Gailey's past, they are calling it a. They'll call it a retirement, but you know exactly what this is. There's no doubt about it. Jets have fired quarterback coach Kevin Patullo, running back coach Marcel Ship, defensive line coach Pepper Johnson, outside linebacker coach Mark Collins, and defensive back coach Joe Dana. Also with now add Chan Gailey to that list, so now that's six guys. So the Jets completely clean house. The quarterback situation, I don't understand how you can call that Patullo's fault. You can almost now assume where the leak came from earlier this week or last weekend about Christian Hackenberg. You can almost guarantee that leak came from Patullo now. Um, the running backs, I mean, Forte was doing great this year until he got hurt. His first 3 or 4 games were good. He was up over or near 100 yards. That Buffalo game, he was running really well. Bilal Powell in that backup running back role was doing very, very well. So, and then kind of after that, it just all sort of fell apart. The defensive line, Pepper Johnson, you know everything that happened on the defensive line this year was between Wilkerson and Richardson. Richardson, without a doubt, will not get another contract to play in this for this team, nor should he. He did absolutely nothing to prove that he, one, wants to be a Jet, and two, wants to play seriously. Um, and I mean, other than that, you really don't have much else to say on the defensive line. The linebackers were this year. That and the secondary, the DB code Dana. I don't know what he did this year. Period. I genuinely have no clue what Joe Dana would want to say that he did this year. Because to be perfectly honest, he did absolutely nothing this year because that secondary was absolutely horrifying to watch. It was a horror show watching that secondary, especially after the team just flat out quit. That and Chan Gailey, when you have an offense that is absolutely horrendous, you're losing players on the offensive line, you lose your running back, you lose your number two wide receiver that had over 1,000 yards last year early. You don't have a quarterback. I mean, if you're an offensive coordinator, what are you supposed to do with that? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Chan Gailey quit. I really would. I really wouldn't. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? When you lose half the players on your offense, you lose your number two wide receiver. The game plan immediately became throw it to Brandon Marshall. I mean, that was the game plan. This was supposed to be a breakout year for Quincy Enunwa as a slot receiver. He, you saw him most of the games. You saw him have 3 or 4 catches, but again, you saw it towards the end. More of Fitzpatrick's time was a third down, Marshall. First down, Marshall. Second down, find somebody else. Fourth down, punt. Didn't matter what the situation was. Fourth down, punt. And again, how Todd Bowles survives all of this. How Bowles survives this, I think, is beyond anyone who is a Jet fan. If you are a Jet fan, you are sitting here going, well, you fired the quarterback coach, you fired the running back coach, you fired every assistant coach on the defense, and your offensive court. How are you not gone? How is he not gone? That right there has to be the main question. How is he not gone? Not only that, but you fire every defensive assistant coach, yet the defensive coordinator is still there. How do you spin that one? How can you even begin to spin that one? You fired every single defensive assistant coach, yet Casey Rogers is still there. That and Tim Atkins, who is quote on the Jet website at least, if you look at the front office page on the Jet website, is the defensive quality control coach. What that means, I don't know. How is Case Rogers still the defensive coordinator for the Jets? Meanwhile, all of his assistants just got the axe. Maybe you don't want to just completely clean house, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how that works. All of your assistants, but you, the one who's in control of the assistants. I don't understand. I don't understand. I really don't. That and again, I feel sorry for the. I feel sorry for the. I feel sorry for the quarterback coach. He didn't have a quarter. I feel bad for Patullo. He did not have a quarterback to coach this year, and you're going to fire him because he didn't have a quarterback to coach. He didn't know who his starting quarterback was going to be week to week past week 10. You expect him to do a good job? Bryce Petty is not NFL ready. Obviously, Christian Hackenberg is not NFL ready. Fitzpatrick is barely NFL capable now at this point. Well, I beat the Buffalo Bills week 17. I said it on Monday. That was a given game. You're going to beat the Buffalo Bills when they have nothing to play for and their head coach got fired with a week left in the season? You really think that you're going to lose to that team? Then again, they're the Jets. You never know. And the Jets actually hurt themselves by losing that game. And that's the funny thing about the Jets is even when they lose, they win. Even when they win, they lose. Right now, the Jets, if I'm looking at it right, will have the sixth or seventh pick in the first round. The way NFL.com has it, Cleveland will have number one, San Francisco number two, either the Bears or the Jaguars 3 and 4. The Rams will have 5, and the Jets and Chargers will fight between 6 and 7. So with the 2 wins, the one against San Francisco and the win last week, the Jets, if you look at it, dropped themselves from a possible number 2 pick from a possible number 2, 3, or 4 pick to either a 6 or a 7. And with the way NFL.com has it, they have the Chargers ranked lower than the Jets, so it would be a number 7 pick. Even when they win, they lose. Wonder where the term "same old Jets" came from. If you paying attention to SNY.TV, they just said that Janoris Jenkins' back feels great and will be ready to play against the Packers. So Janoris Jenkins should be is expected to play now. Pierre-Paul is hopeful to play now against the Packers. But as we look through the rest of these games, and we'll get more in depth into them as the week goes on. Detroit and Seattle. This is a game I think Detroit is coming in on a 3-game losing streak. They've lost to from leading the NFC North to losing to the Giants in a close game to getting blown out by the Cowboys, who were coming off a loss, and who were coming off a win, and losing the division to the Packers, all in 3 weeks. Those are good teams. Those are first and second place teams that they lost to. None of those teams that they lost to in those 3 weeks had less than 10 wins this year. In fact, the Packers were the worst of those teams. They had 10. Those are good losses, but they are also painful losses, because if you are a playoff contender, those are teams that you're going to, one, you're going to end up playing, and two, that you're going to end up having to beat if you want a chance at the Super Bowl. And go figure, all 3 of those teams are in the playoffs representing the NFC. So they couldn't beat any of those teams. Now they have to go and try to beat Seattle. In Seattle, a team that over the last 4 or 5 years has lived in the NFC championship game. And they're going to have to go into Seattle to do it. So that is going to be a tough one. That is going to be a very, very tough one for the Lions to overcome. To the AFC, Miami and Pittsburgh. The only downside to this game is Matt Moore. But even with Matt Moore in, the Dolphins have still had a good year. They are missing Tannehill, definitely, but they are not missing Tannehill as much as, say, the Raiders are missing Carr. They are missing him about as much as the Titans would be missing Mariota right now. That is going to be a very, very difficult game for Miami to win either way, because they're going into Pittsburgh. A warm weather team going into a cold climate, 1, and 2, Pittsburgh is a very, very difficult team to beat at home. You have to get them out of Pittsburgh in order to have a chance to beat them. And they have to play them in Pittsburgh. That is going to be a very, very tough game for the Dolphins. Now you go to Oakland and Houston, which by far is the least enticing of the 3. You have Brock Osweiler starting against Jared Cook. Now that has been made official. Cook will be the starting quarterback for Oakland. It's funny. I'm sorry, Connor Cook, not Jared Cook. Connor Cook. It's funny when you look at ESPN, this media titan who over the last year I have voiced very, very multiple disagreements with. But now, since the whole cable thing has changed to where they're not getting paid by subscribers anymore, they're just getting paid they're just getting paid at a normal rate now. They have to be a little bit smarter with their money. Well, they decided, let's be smart. with their let's be smart with our money, and will invest in an NFL playoff game this year. They paid $100 million to get a playoff game this year. And if you remember back to Monday's show, they are stuck with Connor Cook and the Raiders versus Brock Osweiler and the how did you make it to the playoffs again Houston Texans. They are expected to lose $75 million on this game. And if you listen to the and if you listen to Boomer and Carton this morning, I believe it was Boomer that said, yeah, that pretty much just means now ESPN has to pick between Adam Schefter and Trent Dilfer, which you know which way they're going to go if they had to choose that one. If they had to choose, you know they're going with Schefter to keep Schefter because I mean Trent Dilfer, I mean really, what's Trent Dilfer done? Adam Schefter's their go-to. Boy, I still say the guy's got a face that's about as punchable as a boxing as a as a weighted bag, but isn't it funny how the media giant, the media colossus that is ESPN gets gets the $100 million shaft of Houston, Oakland. That would not be. It would be a lot. It would be a better game if Derek Carr was in there. It's still the worst game of the weekend. It's still the least compelling game of the weekend. But if Derek Carr was if Derek Carr was there, they'd be playing. If Derek Carr was there, they'd be playing the Chiefs, and still not compelling because you know the Chiefs are going to walk through that game just the same way they walked through them earlier this year, or the same way they walked through them last year. $75 million loss for ESPN on that game. If you hate ESPN like I do, that is enough to hold you over for a majority of this year. You're listening to Frank Fired Up here on the Mixed Up Sports Network. Don't go away. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. You're listening to Frank Fired Up, and I'll tell you what. At 24, I just turned 24 on New Year's Eve. At the age of 24, nothing makes me feel weaker than watching a video that ESPN posted today of 67-year-old Ric Flair deadlifting 400 pounds. I feel like if you want something to make you feel like you need to get into shape, that would definitely be it. Um, Really quick, just to round up through the other two sports that are going on right now. The Knicks have just been in absolute shambles. I said that we wouldn't be talking much NBA when we came back, but sometimes it calls for it. The Knicks have been in just absolute shambles. They've lost 8 of their last 10. Um, have done nothing of any form. They've really done nothing of any form of defense to the point where Hornacek saying, maybe our team just can't play defense. They do play the Bucks tonight. I believe, where were they? They were like sixth or seventh in the playoffs, and only a game or two behind Boston when we went on vacation. They're now 5.5 games behind Boston, and two, four, six, eight. They're now 10th place, tied for ninth in the in the East. So the Knicks are starting to tumble. They're now 2 games under 500. And hey, I mean, the Bulls are a game under 500 in the playoffs right now. They're a game under. The Knicks are 16 and 18. The Bulls are in the playoffs at 17 and 18. Yeah, the Bulls are in the playoffs at 17 and 18. So the Knicks are 1 game out of a playoff spot. And to beat the Bucks tonight, who are in sixth in the playoffs, again, they're under 500 as well. Oh no, they're over. Sorry, they're over at 17 and 16. Pardon me. To beat the Bucks tonight uh, would be a huge boost to their playoff hopes. Meanwhile, you have the Brooklyn Nets, who are floundering right now, worst team in the East, and as we sit today, worst team in the NBA. This is a team who, at the beginning of the year, we said was going to struggle to win 20 games. They're at 8 right now. They're 8 and 25 through the first half of the season. So right now, that would have them at what, 16? I mean, this is just a bad, bad Brooklyn Nets team, and this all stems from the first year that they were in Brooklyn. It all stems from Pierce, Garnett, uh, Allen. It all stems from them. Darren Williams. It all stems from them. The New York Rangers will play the Philadelphia Flyers this evening. That game will be on NBCSN, a part of Rivalry Wednesday. Pardon me. Uh, the Rangers coming off of a bad loss at the Garden last night, 4-1 against the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres, who right now are the worst team in the East. That's right, the Islanders are not the worst team in the East, as much as everyone wants to say that they are. Uh, Islanders again. I said it, if you have me on social media, I said the Islanders do not lose on my birthday. They flat out don't. And when you go into Winnipeg, who right now is playing just about as poorly as they are, you go into Winnipeg and you beat them 6-2. That means now the Islanders are 10-1 and 0 in their last 11 games on New Year's Eve. That team does not lose on my birthday, and I love it. Uh, the Rangers right now They're 1 point clear of the Canadiens for third in the conference. They are 2 points behind the Pens and uh, 5 points behind the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are on this otherworldly 16 game winning streak and will play the Washington Capitals tomorrow to try to push that to 16, to try to push that to 17. Obviously, the longest winning streak in the team's history. Uh, on this winning streak, because the Columbus Blue Jackets can't have just a standard. Because the Columbus Blue Jackets can't just have a standard schedule page. They have to have. There we go. I'll tell you what. After last year, the NHL completely messed up its website. I mean, it is you can't navigate the stupid thing. This winning streak started back on the 29th of November, beating Tampa Bay. They then beat, in order, Colorado, Colorado, at Arizona, at versus Arizona on the back both ends of a home and home. Detroit on the road, the Islanders at home on the back end of a back to back. Edmonton in Edmonton, Calgary in Calgary, at Vancouver in overtime versus the Kings in a shootout, versus Pittsburgh 7-1, versus Montreal, versus Boston, versus Winnipeg, versus Minnesota. I'm sorry, at Winnipeg and at Minnesota. Sorry, and versus Edmonton. They have today off, then they go to Washington tomorrow. Friday off, Saturday and Sunday, home back to back against the Rangers and the Flyers, and then at Carolina next Tuesday. So they have 4 games in the next 7 days. 4 games in the next 6 days to possibly push this winning streak to 20, which would be absolutely remarkable if they could do that. The New York Islanders do not play again until I believe it's Saturday. The Islanders don't play again until Saturday. Oh, pardon me. So you got the Rangers play. So you got the Rangers playing the Flyers tonight, coming off of the loss against Buffalo yesterday, 4-1. The Islanders do not see another game until I believe it's Saturday. No, Friday. Friday against the Avalanche in Colorado. So the Islanders are going to go on a little bit of a West Coast swing here. It's Colorado, then Arizona Saturday. So 2 road games in 2 nights, and then they come back home for Wednesday the 11th against the Florida Panthers. And that game against the Panthers, if you want to go all the way out to Brooklyn, is starting lineup John Tavares figurine and player card night. And if you have seen the figurine, the first thing that it'll do is go in the garbage. I really hope that the figurine that they give you on that night is a lot better looking than this. I know stadium giveaway figurines aren't nice. I mean, we have one. I have one from. I have one from a Kings game that I went to Murray, one of the defensemen, and I have through eBay. I have the Tavares giveaway from the last night from the last season at the Coliseum. Those look okay. This one, uh, from starting lineup powered by Dime, looks horrendous. It looks absolutely it looks horrendous. If I were Tavares, I'd be saying, you know what, skip it tonight, please. And this goes to the first 10,000 people. So 10,000 lucky people are going to get this disgusting looking thing for a game against the Florida Panthers, which the team probably is going to be listless in because the Islanders can't play at home. So with that, we will close out the show today.